victory, dog. I'm here to tell you the owners is fed up. They just did an emergency Zoom meeting with 50 players, and they let it be known. It's either y'all signed by March 10th or we're not upholding the 2026 schedule. Y'all, the owners is getting tired. I told you.
2 weeks. That's all the time left before the entire 2026 WNBA season could be in jeopardy. The league just issued an ultimatum to players: sign a new collective bargaining agreement by March 10th or the schedule gets scrapped. And after 16 months of negotiations, the owners are done playing games. But here's what nobody's talking about. This isn't really about money anymore. This is about a power struggle between veteran players and the league's new financial reality. And Caitlin Clark's name is all over it, even though she's barely involved.
I've been telling y'all, it is the old ladies. Caitlin Clark has nothing to do with this. This is simply the old guard WNBA players pretty much stonewalling everybody. They do not want us fans to be happy with the situation that we want to see. And me personally, I'm really starting to get back on my bandwagon with saying that.
Let's be clear about what just happened. The league didn't just send a memo. They organized an emergency virtual meeting with over 50 players, nearly half the entire WNBA roster. That's not normal negotiating procedure. When you bypass the union leadership and go directly to the rank-and-file players, you're sending a message: we think your representatives are the problem. And based on how far apart these two sides still are after 16 months, the owners might have a point.
Because if y'all wanted to see Caitlin Clark come back, and y'all want to see box office numbers coming for the Fever, and y'all want all this revenue stuff, because Caitlin Clark just got y'all $8 million per damn team. Y'all really think y'all selling jerseys, selling merch to get y'all $8 million? No, y'all ain't selling.
This is where it gets interesting. The players' union initially demanded 30% of gross revenue. That's the number they opened with. Then they came down to 27.5%. The league's counter? They're offering 70% of net revenue with no threshold triggers. Now, if you don't understand CBA language, that sounds like the league is offering more. But net revenue versus gross revenue is the entire battle. Gross revenue is everything that comes in the door. Net revenue is what's left after expenses. And the league controls how those expenses get calculated.
All of this up right now. Alexa Philippou up at ESPN working. She working her tail off. I ain't gonna lie to you, dog. I mean, shit. She probably the hardest working person in the W right now, because she dropping stores. She might have just dropped again. Alexa Philippou, look, she did just drop again. But we gonna start right here. This right here is what we need to be talking.
Here's the context everyone needs to understand. ESPN's Alexa Philippou has been covering this story harder than anyone, and she dropped the key detail. This negotiation has been going on for 16 months. Think about that timeline. This started in late 2023, before anyone knew Caitlin Clark would become the biggest story in women's basketball, before the ratings explosion, before the sold-out arenas. The veteran players who control the union locked into their demands before the financial landscape completely changed. And now they're stuck defending a position that might have made sense 16 months ago, but looks increasingly unrealistic today.
Y'all got 2 weeks. We done playing patty cake with y'all. It's either y'all sign or they don't give a damn. You think the owners really care about not having? They don't really care. It ain't like they're making a shit ton of money. They don't care. No. Now, she just stated this 7 minutes ago.
2 weeks from tomorrow, March 10th, is the deadline, and the league made it crystal clear. If there's no term sheet by that date, the 2026 schedule doesn't happen. Now, some people think the owners are bluffing, but consider this. The WNBA has been subsidized by the NBA for decades. These owners have other investments, other teams, other revenue streams. A canceled season hurts the players far more than it hurts the ownership group. The league knows this. The players know this, and that's exactly why the owners feel comfortable drawing a hard line.
2 years. Look, bruh, if the owner's tired, we tired. How the players not tired? How's y'all not tired? Just sign the damn paper. Y'all finna get some money, because if this was about bigger contracts, y'all would have signed already, because y'all already got the bigger contract incentive. Y'all want revenue sharing. You're not going to get it. So take your 15%, your $1 million contract, your $5 to $6 million team cap, and go on about your business. Try again.
The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours, over 50 players on the call, and according to sources who spoke with the Associated Press, the two sides are still far apart on the two biggest issues, revenue sharing and housing. Housing is actually the easier problem to solve. That's about providing year-round accommodations so players don't have to scramble for apartments during the season. But revenue sharing, that's existential. That determines whether WNBA players can make a legitimate living from basketball alone, or whether they're still supplementing with overseas contracts. The players see this as their moment. After decades of minimal investment, the WNBA finally has momentum. Caitlin Clark brought casual fans, ratings tripled for Indiana Fever games. Merchandise sales exploded. The players' union is thinking, if not now, when? If we can't get a fair deal during the biggest growth period in league history, we never will. But the owners are looking at different numbers. Yes, revenue increased, but the league still isn't profitable. The infrastructure investments required for expansion, better facilities, charter flights, those costs are massive. And the owners are saying, we'll share revenue when there's actual profit to share. Until then, we're offering guaranteed salaries that have increased dramatically, even without hitting revenue share triggers.
Like that. Caitlin Clark is going to be rich for a mighty long time. Y'all think Breonna Stewart going to be popping 10 years from today? No. Asia Wilson, y'all really think Asia Wilson going to be popping 10 years from today? Hell no. As much as I love Kelsey Plum, she ain't finna be popping either.
And this is where Caitlin Clark becomes the center of the controversy, even though she's not negotiating. The league just distributed $8 million per team from the revenue explosion this past season. $8 million. That's not jersey sales from Aja Wilson. That's not Sabrina Ionescu's shoe deal. That's almost entirely the Caitlin Clark effect. The TV ratings, the sold-out road games, the national attention. Every team in the league just got a massive check because one player moved the needle that dramatically. So when veteran players are holding up negotiations over revenue-sharing percentages, there's an uncomfortable question hanging in the air. Are you demanding a bigger cut of money that wouldn't exist without the player you spent all season undermining?
It's a win for the owners to meet with 50 players rather than the tool bags who are leaders for the players' union, because the 50 players are the players that's trying to get the deal done. The league only got like 141 active players or something like that, and that's based off last year's number. But for them to sit here and do the buffoonery they're doing, this is not the electric slide. This is not cha-cha-cha. This is sign the damn contract so we can have a season. It's just that simple. Sign a contract so we...
The previous CBA offer from the union asked for 30% of gross revenue. The league's calling that unrealistic, and honestly, the math backs them up. The NBA players get 50% of basketball-related income, but the NBA generates over $10 billion annually and has been profitable for decades. The WNBA is still building toward profitability. Asking for a revenue share percentage that assumes NBA-level financial stability is asking for something the league fundamentally cannot provide yet. But here's where the players have a legitimate grievance. The league's offer of 70% of net revenue sounds generous until you realize the league controls the expense calculations. What counts as a basketball-related expense? Marketing, executive salaries, expansion costs? If the league can categorize everything as an expense, then 70% of net revenue might actually be less than 15% of gross revenue. The players want transparency and a percentage of gross revenue specifically because they don't trust the league's accounting.
The person that spoke with the AP on condition of an enemy because of the sensitive nature of the negotiation. It was the first meeting between the two sides that involved players and the league since they met at the WNBA office on February 2nd. Because of the winter storm that hit New York, it was decided to hold the virtual meeting, right? Over 50 players were on the call, which lasted nearly 2 hours. The person said the two sides are still apart on revenue sharing.
So we're at an impasse, and the clock is ticking. March 10th is the deadline, which means both sides have about 12 days to figure this out. The league bypassed union leadership and went straight to the players because they're betting that rank-and-file members are more reasonable than the veteran stars controlling the negotiations. That's a calculated risk. If enough players break ranks and pressure the union to accept a deal, this gets resolved quickly. But if the players stay unified behind their leadership, we could genuinely be looking at a canceled season, and that's where this gets personal for fans. Because the 2026 season is when we'd see Caitlin Clark in her third year, potentially at her peak. It's when the league could capitalize on all the momentum from 2025. It's when expansion teams might join. Canceling that season doesn't just hurt the players financially, it potentially kills the growth trajectory the league desperately needs.
Of the new CBA deal, its previous offer, the union had asked for 30%. So like I told y'all earlier, they went down to 27. My idea is somewhere between 15 to 18. If they could fall somewhere between 15 to 18% of revenue sharing,
the owners are fed up. That's not speculation. That's the message they delivered directly to 50 players. And when ownership groups that have subsidized a league for nearly 3 decades finally say enough, you have to take that seriously. These aren't empty threats. The WNBA has never been a profit center for these investors. They've supported it for visibility, for social impact, for long-term potential. But patience has limits, especially when negotiations drag on for 16 months with no resolution in sight.
Guys, I'm going to keep bringing you out of this news as long as it keep coming out, and I'm going to keep it real, man. It's these old hags holding up the line. Down in the comment section, let me know y'all thoughts about this. Make sure y'all keep them bells on. I will be back with more content. Till next time.
Here's what makes this situation so frustrating for everyone watching. The players deserve better compensation. That's not even debatable. WNBA salaries have been embarrassingly low for world-class athletes. The maximum salary this past season was around $240,000, which is great money for most people, but absurdly low for the best basketball players on the planet. The league needed to increase salaries, improve travel conditions, provide better facilities, and they've done that. The new proposal includes million-dollar maximum contracts and significantly higher team salary caps. But the union is holding out for revenue-sharing percentages that the league says are financially impossible right now. And after 16 months, neither side is budging. So we're left with this bizarre situation where everyone agrees players should make more money, the league is offering substantially more money, and yet we're still headed toward a potential work stoppage because the two sides can't agree on the revenue-sharing formula. The housing issue is almost resolved. That's the easy part. The league is willing to provide housing. The sticking point is revenue sharing, and specifically whether it's calculated on gross or net revenue. That's the hill both sides are apparently willing to die on. And with only 2 weeks left before the deadline, something has to give. Here's what nobody's saying out loud but everyone's thinking. If the 2026 season gets canceled, Caitlin Clark will be fine. She's got a Nike deal worth $28 million. She's got endorsements from State Farm, Gatorade, Wilson Sporting Goods. She could sit out a year and still make more money than most WNBA players will earn in their entire careers. The same goes for Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu. The top-tier stars have endorsement money that dwarfs their WNBA salaries. But the middle-tier and bottom-tier players, they need that WNBA salary. They need that season. A canceled year could end careers for players who are already on the roster bubble, and those are the players the union is supposed to be protecting. So when the league bypassed union leadership and spoke directly to 50 players, they were specifically targeting those middle and bottom-tier players who have the most to lose from a work stoppage. That's smart negotiating tactics from the league. Maybe ruthless, but smart. They're creating pressure on the union from within. They're forcing players to choose between solidarity with their leadership and their own financial survival. And with a 2-week deadline, that pressure is about to intensify dramatically. The February 2nd meeting got postponed because of a winter storm in New York. So this virtual meeting was the first real face-to-face conversation in weeks. And by all accounts, it didn't go well. The two sides are still far apart. The league delivered an ultimatum. The players are meeting separately to discuss their response. This is high-stakes brinkmanship, and neither side appears ready to blink. What happens if we hit March 10th with no deal? Does the league actually cancel the schedule, or is that a bluff? Does the union finally compromise, or do they hold firm? And what role do the players themselves play? Do they pressure their leadership to accept a deal, or do they stay unified even if it costs them a season? The smart money says this gets resolved at the last minute. That's how these negotiations usually work. Both sides push to the absolute deadline, then someone blinks and we get a deal. But 16 months is a long time to be negotiating. That's not normal. That suggests fundamental disagreements that aren't easily resolved. And when you've got owners saying they're willing to cancel a season, you have to consider the possibility they mean it. Caitlin Clark's name keeps coming up because she's the elephant in the room. The revenue explosion that's funding these increased salaries came almost entirely from her impact on the league. The $8 million per team, that's Caitlin Clark money. The new TV deal, negotiated based on Caitlin Clark ratings. The sold-out arenas? Caitlin Clark fans. And yet she's a second-year player with almost no leverage in these negotiations. The veteran players who control the union are negotiating for a share of revenue that wouldn't exist without a player they spent all last season treating poorly. That's the uncomfortable subtext to this entire situation. The players' union is technically right. They deserve revenue sharing. They deserve better compensation. They deserve to be treated like the professional athletes they are. But they're also demanding a cut of money that a player outside their power structure generated. And that creates a weird dynamic where the league can point to Caitlin Clark and say, we're willing to share revenue when someone actually generates it, but we're not giving you 30% of gross revenue just because you've been in the league longer. So where does this end? Realistically, somewhere between 15 and 18% of gross revenue is probably where a deal gets done. That's the compromise zone. The players come down from 27.5%, the league comes up from their net revenue offer with a gross revenue percentage, and they meet somewhere in the middle. Housing gets resolved because that's easy, and we get a new CBA that keeps the 2026 season on track. But if that doesn't happen, if we actually hit March 10th with no deal, then we're in uncharted territory. The league has never canceled a season over labor negotiations. The players have never gone on strike. This would be unprecedented, and the damage to the league's momentum could be catastrophic. You don't get casual fans back easily after you cancel a season. You don't maintain sponsor relationships when there's no product. You don't keep media coverage when there's nothing to cover. The stakes are enormous. The deadline is real, and 2 weeks is not a lot of time to resolve disagreements that have persisted for 16 months. So the question becomes, who blinks first? The owners who are tired of subsidizing a league that won't accept their offer, or the players who risk losing an entire season of salary over revenue-sharing percentages? My prediction? This gets resolved March 9th, one day before the deadline. Someone makes a final concession. Both sides declare victory, and we move forward. But the fact we're even at this point, after 16 months of negotiations, tells you something about how broken the relationship is between WNBA ownership and the players' union. And that's a problem that won't get fixed with one CBA agreement. This is going to be an ongoing battle for years to come.